Biryani learning. Today, what I learned is that if you uh, add very little amount of ghee, it will become dry. Like I only added like two full tablespoons or teaspoons, whatever, of ghee while marinating the chicken, and I added around one whole tomato, uh, puree of one whole tomato, and a lot of dahi. The problem is that if I added since I added a lot of dahi today, it became a little too sour for my palate. I would rather prefer it slightly lesser sour and a slightly more sweet. I would prefer it on the sweeter side, in fact. But traditionally in Hyderabad dum biryani, you only use fried onions for the sweetness. You don't use anything else, technically. That's why what I learned today is that I would prefer using a nice cooked gravy, a nice uh, in the dum biryani, but not like I'm not gonna cook the whole chicken curry first. I'm gonna cook the chicken raw on dum, but I'm gonna use a gravy that has been sauteed and nicely fried and sauteed in onion, sauteed in oil, and the oil gets separated, and all the garam masalas should be added in that. So the gravy should be cooked, the chicken should be raw, and this is something that people in Karachi do. The Karachi biryani is a little similar to that, but in Karachi they don't use onions; they use only tomatoes. They don't like the sweetness. So what I will do instead next time is I will use onions and tomatoes both for the puree, and I will cook them. I will nicely cook the gravy, and after it, the oil separates, and after it cools down, that is when I will use that gravy as a marination along with some curd, but less amount of curd. Usually, in dum biryani, Hyderabadi dum biryani, we use a lot of curd, and today I used a little more, so it became a little too sour for my palate. Probably this is how Hyderabad biryani should taste. It should taste sour, and the only sweetness that comes is from fried onions. But that is not enough. I used a lot of fried onions even today, but that was not enough for me. So I didn't really enjoy that sour, a little too sour over taste. So to control that, I'm gonna use onions as well in the gravy, but in the cook form, not in the because if you use raw onions, I don't think it will make the taste go well. You can use raw tomatoes, which is what I did today, but that doesn't disturb the taste palette. But if I use raw onions, I don't think it will work. So instead, I will cook it nicely, and so that I don't have to use a lot of curd to give it moisture, I will use the gravy to give it moisture. But the what I learned also today is that cooking chicken this way, it just is better. The chicken today was fabulous, mind blowing. It almost like it was like if you touch it, it could go like a paste. It was going like a paste. This is how melt in the mouth it was today. It was not at all thready, and it was also because it was not that old. It was kind of a young chicken, I guess. But even if it was a little old, I think the way I cooked it today and the way I marinated it for a lot of hours, it wouldn't have mattered. Even if it was older, even if it was slightly heavy, it wouldn't have mattered today, because that's how well the whole marination process and the cooking process went out. So this is what I have to remember the next time. I have to use a cooked gravy, and the rest of it remains the same. Um, the way I cook my rice and all of that remains the same. Adding a lot of salt while boiling the rice and not above it, that remains the same. I use potatoes, that also remains the same. So only the gravy are cooked and cooled. That is also important, because I don't want to use gravy just after it's done. I don't want to use that in dum biryani, because that what will happen is that even before the dum starts, it will start cooking the chicken, which is what we don't want. We want the chicken to start cooking when the dum starts, not before that. So I have to use cooked but cooled gravy. Now, what could be the gravy? It could be a normal gravy like we use for any gravy recipe, uh, but the oil has to spill out of it. The oil has to be separated, so that we know it's completely cooked. Now, biryani masala could be incorporated in the gravy while cooking, or it might not be used, because this way, by using the biryani masala directly in the dum, I think the process would do well. So these are the two alternatives you can do. You can use the biryani masala while cooking the gravy that you're gonna cool and use, or you don't have to use the biryani masala then, and then while you're assembling the raw chicken and the cooked gravy, that is when you add the biryani masala to it, which is what we should do. So the only difference here is that we're adding cooked gravy to this, and all of this whole process of dum biryani, Hyderabadi dum biryani, remains the same. A little similar to, again, I'm saying Karachi dum biryani. This is how, or I don't think so, Karachi. No, it's Degi biryani, I think. I don't know, I'm not sure now. Is it Degi biryani that is made this way, or Karachi biryani? But Karachi biryani doesn't use onion, they only use tomatoes. Degi biryani, I think, uses a little similar, or maybe they cook the chicken as well before adding the rice. So yeah, these are my biryani learnings today. Tune in for this podcast in the next episode as well. I'm gonna make a series of biryani learnings. In fact, I should have made it long before. I've been making biryani for 2-3 years consistently now, and almost in falling in love with it, and also realizing that it's not that difficult as we make out of it. It's a very simpler process of making bread. It's not very time consuming as well. Once you marinate the chicken, and once you put, these are the only two things you do, actually speaking. You marinate the chicken, and then you put it on the, you don't keep stirring, you don't keep tasting all the time, which you normally do for making a curry or something. Or making a pulao, we have to always think about the rice, whether the rice will nicely be separated, or whether it will incorporate everything, and the salt will be perfect, and all of that you have to worry while making all different recipes. But biryani, it's actually very easier. But to customize biryani, because I've made biryani now, and I've realized that I used to love the already cooked chicken in curry, and then when it kind of stays for a while, and then just put biryani rice on it and cook it on dum, and that is what I used to love a lot for some time now. Then, rather than the whole process of going for the kachi dum biryani while cooking raw chicken. But I've realized that that also works well for me. But that taste and the dum biryani taste, where you cook the chicken from the from nowhere. I mean, start from ground zero. The taste palette is completely different here and there. But I also want to customize that to my preference, which is that I don't want it to be that sour. The taste palette a little less sour, and it's wonderful. It's perfect. That's what I want to do. But you also want moisture, so you cannot like use less curd and then do the same recipe like Hyderabadi dum biryani. Then it won't work, because then the masala itself will be very less, and you won't have the moisture in the biryani. If there is no moisture in the biryani, from where will your rice get the kind of uh, base that you need for a biryani? So we replace that with the cooked masala, the cooked gravy is what I'm gonna try next time. So yeah, and I will, the next episode of this podcast will be when I make that second version of biryani, and I will tell you how it works and what are the changes that you need to do, and also tell you the other one that I just told you, the most easiest biryani in the world. It tastes a little different than the dum biryani though, but I love that biryani as well. Really love that biryani. It's the most easiest biryani, I would say. It literally requires nothing. It just requires already made, and it's easier option for mutton, especially more than chicken, because cooking mutton from the word go is from ground zero is a difficult task. It's a difficult task for, if you want to make a dum biryani with mutton and you want to cook it from so mostly what people do when they make mutton biryani at home, because it's impossible to really do it well, like you do it with chicken. You start with raw, and it's with chicken it's easier. It's like a question of half an hour at max, and you know the chicken is gonna melt very well. Do mutton, you don't know, you're not very sure of it. So everyone prefers the easier way, the other way. I have the easier way, but everyone prefers that they cook the mutton first and then they immediately add the rice, uh, and then they put it on dum. What I do is that I don't put it immediately. I would rather like that if in the morning you eat mutton curry, whatever you've done. It could also be dry mutton, by the way. It could be mutton fry, it could be gravy mutton, it could be anything. And then in the evening, you use the same ready-made mutton curry for your dum. And that is when it tastes even better, because what has happened is that the mutton has incorporated the whole gravy in it already. So when you cook it like cook it on for biryani, the water evaporates, the gravy evaporates into the rice, and the pieces of mutton are still left with all the masala that it already was cooked in. Whereas if you immediately cook mutton biryani that way and without a lot of marination, the problem is that the mutton pieces will not incorporate the masala. The masala will not stick on them. The biryani will taste good, mind you. The rice will taste good, but the mutton pieces won't taste good. That's the problem. So you want both those things to work for you. You can't choose one in that. I think some people would prefer that the rice is tasteful, so it doesn't matter the pieces, if masala is on there or not. So that is why even for chicken biryani, if you're going from ground zero and cooking raw biryani, or you're doing an exact patent recipe of Hyderabadi dum biryani, doing it without marination is suicide. I mean that that is where any biryani could easily fail, and that is where people think biryani is complicated. You just have to give time to marinate for the chicken to be marinated. That's all. You don't have to wait and see that to marinate. You have to marinate it and keep it in the fridge. And for that, you have to bring it in advance, probably. That's the only tricky thing about biryani, I would say, for dum biryani particularly. And if you're anyways making curry or masala or gravy in one portion of the day, then you can use the exact same ready-made chicken curry or mutton, especially mutton. Again, I'm saying, because cooking chicken is an easy process. It's just, again, I'm saying, it's a half an hour procedure. It's nothing big, and you're very sure of the results. That if it's marinated well, it's gonna taste wonderful. The chicken is always gonna taste wonderful, no matter what you do. If you have marinated well, remember this as well. You do anything with the rice, you do whatever you want to do, and it might taste different. But if the chicken is marinated well, no one can make it taste bad. That's how simple and that's how uncomplicated it is in terms of biryani. The chicken will always taste good if it's marinated well for some time. I mean, for some time, what it means by that, I would say that ideally it should be like 5-6 hours. I mean, but if not 5-6 hours, at least 3 hours, minimum 3 hours. 1 hour will do nothing to the chicken, I would say, and it will absolutely do nothing to the mutton. But even to chicken, 1 hour it cannot make it. I mean, for a normal chicken curry or a chicken masala that you're doing, or stir frying chicken or making tandoori chicken, for that 1 hour, half an hour is okay, cool. But for biryani, if you do that, what will happen is that when you cook it, the rice will soak away whatever the gravy is, the marination is. The rice might taste good. It will incorporate the taste of the chicken itself, but the chicken will taste like it's been boiled, and you don't want, because that's what you normally get if you go and order it in not so professional restaurant. You get chicken biryani that tastes like boiled chicken. Like it has boiled chicken in it, because the chicken has no character. There is no marination to it. So yeah. So the next podcast we'll talk about the curry and the cooked curry dum biryani, and then we will also talk about the most easiest biryani in the world, the already curry chicken or curry mutton thing. Yeah, and we'll also talk about other different biryanis that we can make, and we can talk about what exactly is veg biryani, and does it veg biryani should have some kind of respect, and I believe it should have a lot of respect, in fact, because I believe that vegetables on their own are very flavorful. If you're trying to make a paneer biryani and expect it to taste like chicken or mutton, that's not gonna happen. It's ridiculous, because paneer doesn't really have any of its taste. There is no taste in paneer. If you have paneer on its own, it's never gonna taste anything like. But even vegetables, if you just purely boil them and try to eat them, they would actually taste much tastier than even probably some non-veg items. Vegetables on their own are much more tasteful. So, and that's what is. I mean, that's what biryani really is. I mean, the ingredient that you use, the core ingredient, it could be protein, it could be anything, it should have some of its own taste that it could incorporate to the rice, and then the rice should like complement that taste. and if they make a good pair, that's how the biryani works. So vegetarian biryani can work. Mushrooms can be wonderful for biryani, I believe. Though I feel that the ready-made the button mushrooms that we get are not really that good. But if you could find, which we don't find a lot, uh, the jungly mushrooms, they might taste good. You can use prawns for the biryani, but prawns on its own, the whole prawns pulao thing, if you know, you cook it like a pulao, it also tastes wonderful. But even as biryani, I feel prawns can be. But the difficult part with prawns for biryani is that they cook very quickly. They almost take like only 5 minutes to cook. And for something that cooks in 5 minutes and making biryani out of it is very difficult. So I actually don't remember trying out prawns biryani some, but I think I should try it out, and what I learn from it will be consequential and it should be important. But what I think is that prawns, if you cook it more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, crossing 10 minutes with prawns is like killing prawns. I mean, you don't want. I mean, it might still be eatable, and people will think it's tasty, but it's not. I mean, if you cook it more than 10 minutes, they're as good as dead. And can there be some other fish biryanis? For example, there could be, I don't know what they call, yeah, squid. I think I've made squid biryani and it tastes wonderful. Now squid is also not, is a very tricky thing. Squid is not as wholesomely tasteful as prawns are, or chicken, or as mutton is, but squid has a taste of sea in it. I mean, it's a shellfish. I mean, it's not shellfish, it tastes like shellfish. So when you make it normal squid curry, you feel the sea in the gravy. It has that saltiness to it. I don't know how to define it for someone who has never had shellfish or has never had uh, uh, squid. I don't think they can ever understand that taste. It's a very specific taste. But by salty, it doesn't mean a lot of salt. By salty, it means it tastes like the sea. It has the flavor of the sea. Uh, that flavor of the sea can add a lot to the biryani. The other shellfish, the other varieties of shellfish can also do the same. Uh, can you make the can you make a crab biryani? I think that would be an interesting thing. If you can make crab biryani. I don't know. It could, because crab is an extremely flavorful ingredient. It can really, but will it work with the core taste of biryani? And what is the core taste of biryani? It's now some people, I don't know if the people understand this or not, but ghee is one of the core tastes of biryani. You cannot replace. You shouldn't replace. You might use it in little amount, and you use a little of oil if you don't like it enough a lot. But ghee is the core element. Ghee is one of those. I would say there are three core elements to a good biryani, and rice is not one of them. Rice can really be replaceable. You can use. I ideally you always prefer normal basmati rice, but it can be some different kind of rice as well, and that biryani can also be very interesting. It's not one of those core elements that it has to be basmati. No, basmati is not the core element. The core elements are um, ghee, as I'm saying. Second is curd, dahi, yogurt, obviously, and the third one is ginger and garlic. I mean, then there are a lot of other things that you can add. You can add a lot of pudina, a lot of coriander, a lot of green chilies, a lot of garam masalas. Garam masala is also, yeah, that also is a very core element, I would say, but that is like the obvious core element. The biryani masala is the obvious core element, but the other ones that we don't understand, and we sometimes make the biryani without them, is ghee, curd, or uh, other cluster. You cannot make a biryani without these three things. So no matter whatever combinations you try to make, these three core elements will remain, and other layers can be changed around. And that's where you can play around with. You can add a lot of things. You can subtract a lot of things. Whether can you use something else, if you want to really experiment, you can replace ghee. It's not like it's impossible to replace ghee, but a normal refined oil or sunflower oil or groundnut oil cannot be the replacement for ghee. If you're using, you don't like the taste of ghee, probably you should still use it in some little amount maybe, and you can use a normal refined oil to accompany it. But if you want to try something like a coconut oil biryani, I think that could be interesting. You can make coconut oil biryani, especially if you're making prawns. I think that would be an interesting combination. You can try it once in a while, but I don't think it would work for everything. But ghee is something that will work with everything. When it's biryani, it's ghee, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, vegetarian as well, but especially non-vegetarian. Some fools think, some vegetarian fools think, I don't know, who think that ghee is not supposed to be eaten with non-vegetarian food. And I think this is what really they don't understand about biryani. I mean, ghee and non-veg are the most, I mean, not just in biryani, ghee and non-veg in general are the most beautiful romance in cooking. It's the most beautiful romance. It's more romantic than vegetarian and ghee. It's more romantic than a sweet delicacy like let's say shira or shivaya. So ghee is a bigger has a bigger romantic marriage with non-vegetarian food than those vegetarian recipes. Really, because the enhancement that can give to non-vegetarian recipes is much more higher than what it gives to the vegetarian recipes. In vegetarian recipes, some people who prefer dalda can go for it. I don't like dalda at all. But even without ghee, those veg delicacies then doesn't really. I mean, apart from a few of them, like for example, malpua. I don't think malpua without ghee would be interesting, or like that. But with non-vegetarian, I think the romance is next level. And the fun the interesting part is that ghee in non-vegetarian never tastes like ghee in normal. I mean, if you taste ghee, you know how it tastes like, how it smells like. And when you use it in vegetarian recipes or in sweet dishes, it also tastes the same, it also smells the same. So it remains the same in vegetarian recipes. It doesn't change itself. I mean, it tastes good, obviously. We love, I mean, in vegetarian recipes and especially desserts, we love the taste of ghee. But it still remains ghee. You have it ghee purely as ghee, it will taste the same. But with non-vegetarian recipes, ghee completely alternates it. It completely changes its taste, and you can never tell someone who doesn't who hasn't been used to it can never tell that there is ghee in this non-vegetarian recipe, because the way it changes itself is extraordinary. And you cannot have that element with purely with normal refined oil. You cannot have that. But you might have some different dimension if you use some different kinds of oil. For example, again, coconut oil is one example, when my favorite is mustard oil in general. But again, I have realized that mustard oil and rice is something that is a very tricky combination. I don't know if it would work and how often. I've made egg biryani with mustard oil. Whereas I have to say this, egg biryani is not a good idea. I would rather say that if you make, it's better to make veg biryani with vegetables, and you can add egg by the side if you want to that biryani. But eggs on its own, or egg on its own, as a biryani element, as a primary biryani element, is actually not that powerful. In fact, we use potatoes as side elements in biryani, but potatoes can work as the primary element for a biryani, but eggs can't. Eggs, but people make a lot of egg biryani. People eat a lot of egg biryani. I've seen this because they don't eat chicken and mutton many a time, so they prefer egg biryani, I guess. But I don't know, because egg has very little to give in terms of taste. I mean, we all love egg in general, but to I mean, it's like I don't know how to define it. It's like we know, I mean, and we know a certain kind of a cricketer who bats at number seven. Uh, some bats at number seven, and he comes in and then scores a few boundaries and this and that, and he plays at a good strike rate. But to expect that player to be the opening batsman in a test match is bizarre, right? So that is what on his own right, in a T20 match, in a particular situation, that batsman who comes at number seven has a good strike rate, has good consistency, can be a very important player, a very good player. But that same batsman as an opening batsman in a test match is pointless, right? He's of no worth. So that's what egg is to biryani. It's of no worth in biryani. But or else we all love egg. So I think this is enough for today. So we'll talk about other kinds of combinations and all kinds of possibilities. Yeah.